request Shri Prithviraj, National President IBJA, Shri Vikas, Singh, MD and CEO MMTC-PAMP to kindly come on stage. Also joining the inaugural session virtually are Shri Injeti Srinivas, Chairperson IFSCA, the Chief Guest of the Day, Ms. Ruth, Crowell, CEO, LBMA, Mr. S Reddy, MD and CEO, MCX, Mr. David Tait, CEO, WGC, has sent us a recorded message which we will play in the end.
It's so nice to see all of you physically today. At the same time, we have lost a lot of our industry colleagues and friends during the last 2 years. So, may I request all of you to kindly stand up for a minute as a mark of showing our respect for the departed soul. Thank you very much. Now I begin my welcome address. Chief Guest of the day, Shri Injeti Srinivas, Chairperson, International Financial Services Center Authority, dignitaries from government organizations, national and international associations, industry bodies, distinguished experts from industry from India and rest of the world, guests from press and media, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you to the Hybrid India Gold Conference 2021, presented to you by the India Bullion and Jewellers Association, IBJA, and organized by Invental Global Advisory Services. While we meet here physically in the beautiful city of Jaipur, technology has enabled those who could not make it here physically to join virtually. In a way, this has opened the conference to participants across the world and has expanded the relevance and reach of this platform. Perhaps this could be the new normal going forward. In many ways, what is true of the changes in this conference is also true of other aspects of our businesses. COVID has reset all our assumptions, helped us to rethink everything about our businesses, beliefs and behavior. No doubt, 2020 and 2021 had seen incredible number of path-breaking innovations and inventions. In our bullion markets too, we have seen the creation of IFSCA and of late the shaping up of IBX. Hence we are so fortunate to have with us the chairperson Shri Injeti Srinivas himself here to deliver the keynote on this important subject. Many believe what is shaping up in Gandhinagar, Gujarat could change the entire landscape of how bullion is sourced, priced, stored and moved to the industry going forward. Sir, we are very happy that you could spare your valuable time for us today. Likewise, LBMA and World Gold Council have been doing substantial work around responsible sourcing and rebuilding trust at the consumer level respectively. It would be a wonderful opportunity to get an update from the heads of these institutions on their activities and programs. Besides, we have 3 special addresses, starting with Shri Prithviraj Kothari ji, National President, IBJA, and then Mr. Vikas Singh, MD CEO, MMTC-PAMP India Private Limited, and then Mr. S Reddy, MD CEO, MCX. We have about 260 delegates joined here in Jaipur, and about 125 delegates connected virtually for the conference. Over 44 speakers will deliberate on topics around the theme, Reform Shaping India Bullion Markets, today and tomorrow. We have a roundtable discussion with the industry associations soon after this inaugural function. Then we would have the much awaited India IGC Excellence Award ceremony today. Tomorrow we would start with a keynote from SEBI on the reforms in the commodity sector. The masterclass has been rescheduled immediately thereafter. It will be followed by 4 panel discussions, one on India gold markets and trade, the second one on gold refining and responsible sourcing, the third on digital, paper gold and silver, and finally discussion on the price outlook for gold and silver. Besides, we have 2 important presentations, one on Swarna Adarsh Abhiyan, SAA, and the other one, the understanding of Indian gold consumers. There is plenty of opportunity to network, express your views and opinions through IGC app. And it would be a good chance to win one of the 2 prizes for best online interaction. We encourage you to make the best use of all these facilities on the app. Our help desk is always ready to assist you and guide you if you still haven't downloaded the app. We would bring out the summary and key highlights of the conference, and with IBJA take some of these recommendations to the relevant policymakers. A conference of this magnitude is not possible without the support of sponsors, partners and supporting bodies. I welcome each one of the patrons and appreciate the support. We are amidst one of the most important periods in the history of evolution of India bullion markets. With proactive government, progressive regulators and enterprising business houses, the India bullion market is poised for a 10x growth in 5 years. Hope this conference would enable these industry participants to be a part of that growth story. With these words, I welcome once again all of you. Have a wonderful 2 days filled with sharing and seeking of knowledge, networking and leisure. Thank you so much. Best wishes to all of you.
Now I request Shri Prithviraj Kothari, National President IFSCA, to deliver his special address.
Respected Chief Guest, Shri Injeti, Srinivas, Vikas Singh, Ruth, Reddy from MCX, Gold Council from SOM, IFSCA एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर मनोज जी, आप सबका मैं राजस्थान में यानी हमारी नगरी में पिंक सिटी पल जेएमएन ज्वेलरी मतलब कलर स्टोन सिटी में आप सबका मैं स्वागत करता हूं। और राजस्थान में आने से हमको एक अलग स्मेल आती है और एक अलग खुशी महसूस होती है। On behalf of India Bullion and Jeweller Association, I welcome all the delegates to the India Gold Conference 2021. Hope you and your family in safe and its sound health. Gold is already declared as an asset class by Government of India. Given the size of above ground stock of gold in India, such an initiative would provide huge employment opportunity and revenue from the government. IBJA has been fully supporting and participating in all initiatives of government and other stakeholders in developing gold as an asset class. Let me elaborate the role played by IBJA in both the physical gold market as well as financial side of the gold market. IBJA, as a part of working committee, contributed to the development of India Good Delivery Standard of BIS. IBJA has also ensured that gold refined in accredited Indian refineries is acceptable at the India Commodity Exchange, which until now were only accepting imported gold bar. This is in the line with the government vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. This is brought complete transparency in the gold business. IBJA is also aligned with government's vision of implementing mandatory hallmarking and would support the program through extensive training program and awareness among jewelry manufacturers and retailers. IBJA support complete transparency in the gold business in terms of not only pricing and purity of gold but also responsible sourcing. We have ensured that all gold and gold dore brought into the country is responsibly sourced. IBJA is working closely with OECD in adoption of responsible sourcing guidance by refiners and also creating awareness among the refiners and jewelry manufacturers. Now let me share some information on the role played by IBJA in the government program on financialization of gold. As mentioned before, IBJA provides spot prices which form the basic of setting prices of sovereign gold bond. Besides, IBJA has been supporting through knowledge input, consultation meeting and awareness program development of gold ETF market and product. Gold monetization scheme, gold future and option programs of commodity exchange such as MCX, BSE and NSE and digital gold initiatives. IBJA has made a number of representatives to the Finance Ministry, Commerce Ministry and RBI to further develop sovereign gold bond and GMS scheme. IFSCA believes that launch of bank-based gold product could expand the scope of analyzing of gold immediately. India market has a strong appetite for products like gold saving account, gold recurring account and gold linked insurance product. These would help channelize demand for investment gold through banking system, thereby reducing pressure on physical gold. IFSCA congratulates governments for its commitment towards setting up the International Bullion Exchange in Gift City, Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad. Success of International Bullion Exchange depends largely on participation of international buyers and sellers on exchange. It is thus essential that we create a robust mechanism for participation of international community. It is also essential that domestic players are allowed to participate on the exchange within the permitted capital control regulations. IFSCA would work closely with IFSCA in creating a world-class gold exchange at par with similar global exchanges. We are early awaiting launch of IIBX schedule of on 11 January 2022. अभी हाल ही में कल या परसों ये अनाउंसमेंट हुआ है कि इंटरनेशनल स्पॉट एक्सचेंज इन गिफ्ट सिटी मोदी जी 11 जनवरी को इसका इनॉग्रेशन करने वाले हैं, तो ये बहुत ही बड़ी बात है. सेबी हैज़ ऑलरेडी come out with the final paper on domestic gold spot exchange. IBJA had been part of SEBI's committee and World Gold Council committee for setting up domestic exchange in country. We are eagerly awaiting launch of EGR in India, electronic gold receipt in India. Opening up on mining sector and setting up the bullion bank is the need of hour, which matches with government dream of vocal for local and Atmanirbhar Bharat. IFSCA can play a major role in bringing foreign direct investment for exploration of gold mining sector. India should look at creating world-class jewelry park, which will not only create job opportunity but also increase the export revenue. These parks can also have skill development center for gem and jewelry sector. It is essential that we preserve and pass on Karigar skill to the next generation. It's time we open up India's gold sector and create a marketplace for everyone. The future of the business depends largely on transparency from industry and support from the government. IFSCA is committed to closely working with all stakeholders to bring transparency in gold ecosystem. I would now like to present to you some of major initiatives and achievement of IFSCA. IFSCA has been pushing for silver ETF. Silver ETF का आपको पता होगा, हम लोग लास्ट 10 ईयर्स से सिल्वर ETF के बारे में पुश कर रहे थे कि सेबी इसको अप्रूव करे. फाइनली सेबी अप्रूव एन अनाउंसमेंट, उनकी गाइडलाइन भी आ गई है, SOP भी उनकी आई है और बहुत विद इन 15 or 20 days we launch in silver ETF in all the exchanges, BSE and NSE. Silver ETF also with the part of the gold ETF, same like a gold ETF. We have the number of meetings with DIA during lockdown. IFSCA could finally convince government that jewelers need to be part of GMS and incentive also need to be given to promote GMS grassroots level. इसमें भी हमने काफ़ी बैंकों के साथ में भी बात की. मिनिस्ट्री इज़ वेरी कीन कि गोल्ड मोनेटाइजेशन स्कीम और GML को कैसे भी करके इसको इम्प्रूव करना है. इसको करना है कि जो हाउस होल्ड के पास में जो गोल्ड पड़ा है, जो अनयूज गोल्ड पड़ा है, जो टेम्पल ट्रस्ट के पास में पड़ा है, उसको कैसे सिस्टम में लाया जाए ताकि हमारा करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट भी हो और रोटेशन में हम इंपोर्ट पे उतना डिपेंड नहीं करें. तो इसके लिए हम IFSCA और पूरी जितनी भी ज्वेलर्स इंडस्ट्री और एसोसिएशन थी, उन लोगों ने मिल के एक प्रोग्राम दिया है. बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली बैंक्स आगे नहीं आ रही है, बैंकों को बहुत सी हर्डल आ रही है. SBI पे भी प्रेशर काफ़ी है. बट इसको संभालने के लिए हमने उनको बहुत से आइडियाज़ अच्छे दिए, बट उनके पास मैन पावर की कमी होने के कारण वो थोड़ा डिले हो रहा है. बट ये भी बहुत जल्दी अनाउंसमेंट आ जाएगा. डिजिटाइजेशन एंटायर इकोसिस्टम ऑफ गोल्ड थ्रू द प्लेटफॉर्म. To begin, we started multiple gold SIP and digital gold option for benefit final consumers. We intend to soon add jewelry loan, jewelry insurance, coin sale, jewelry sale and various other gold financial product on this platform. हमने डिजिटल गोल्ड भी स्टार्ट किया है इब्जा ने, जिसमें कस्टमर को ऑनलाइन बाय कर सकता है, SIP के थ्रू बाय कर सकता है। उसके लिए भी हम लोग इब्जा ने इसके लिए बहुत बड़ा इनिशिएटिव लिया है। इब्जा इज ऑल्सो सेट अ लॉन्च एन ओन रिफाइनरी इन गिफ्ट सिटी थैंक्स टू मनोज जी एंड इंजेती श्रीनिवासन एंड तपन राय जी, जिन्होंने इब्जा के ऊपर ट्रस्ट किया और हमें रिफाइनरी बनाने के लिए जगह अलॉट की है। थैंक्स वेरी मच सर। India has 718 districts and we intend to launch 5 IBJA aggregated jewelry store in each district. हम लोग IBJA चाहते हैं कि अब हॉल मार्किंग हो गया है, हॉल मार्किंग इज़ मैंडेटरी, HYD कोड है, BIS बार है, हर चीज़ से अब गोल्ड में लोगों को उसके साथ में कैसा जोड़ा जाए। अब हम देख रहे हैं कि बड़े बड़े शोरूम्स के अंदर जो रश है, छोटे ज्वेलर्स को ही ऐसा नहीं लगना चाहिए कि हमारा धंधा हमारे से ख़त्म हो जाएगा या कम हो जाएगा। तो उनके लिए हमने इब्जा एग्रीगेटेड स्टोर का प्लानिंग किया है कि जिसके अंदर हॉल मार्किंग माल होगा। इब्जा एग्रीगेटेड स्टोर के अंदर आपको बायर सेलर के लिए भी हम बायर को भी देंगे और सेलर को आपको माल भी प्रोवाइड करेंगे। तो इस तरह के हम लोग एक प्लानिंग किया है कि जिसमें हम हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट के अंदर 5 सेंटर खोलेंगे। तो 700 डिस्ट्रिक्ट में ऑलमोस्ट 3600 स्टोर्स की हमारी प्लानिंग है। This would be the largest branded chain of stores, especially catering to the mid-sized jewelry segment and consumers. Thank you very much.
Now I would request Shri Vikas Singh, MD and CEO, MMTC-PAMP, to deliver his address.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kothari ji. That was truly very inspiring and a very long list of achievements by IBJA, and we're really grateful for all the good work and hard work being put in by you. Good evening to Mr. Srinivas, our chief guest, fellow delegates, and all the attendees over here. And the back of a pandemic, last year this conference happened virtually, and I remember it was my first conference, and the participation rates were so aggressive, so volatile, so exciting. I'm sure this conference is going to show even much higher levels of energy, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also sure all of you are watching your phones because the price of gold has been going up, so maybe you will take some time out to also share your experiences. The year gone by, if we were to broadly sum it up, this is classical Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong went wrong. I mean, the pandemic, possibly the worst disaster the world has faced since the Second World War, has really tested all of us on every possible count. But what's really emerged as a result of this pandemic, and here I now speak for MMTC-PAMP, is this was a time for all of us to introspect, all of us to ask some basic existential questions on how we are doing our business and what is the course that we should now be charting for ourselves. How do we redefine our purpose? How do we redefine what we do, who we work with, what our principles are, what our values are, and most importantly, how do we try and scale ourselves beyond the Indian scope into a global scope? And I'm sure a lot of you are asking the same questions. What's also emerged as a result of the pandemic is very clearly the role of precious metals in our lives, in the lives of our customers, in the lives of our consumers. Never before has the world possibly come out so strongly with an endorsement in favor of the role of precious metals in our portfolio. There are clear numbers now being floated. Should it be 5%? Should it be 10%? Should it be 15%? Whatever be that number, the one thing that's coming through is I don't think you're going to see a world in the future which does not have the presence of precious metals in a much more integrated way for all of us. Yet another shift that we saw at MMTC-PAMP is how the millennials and the Gen Z are now engaging with this category. And given the fact that the entire digitization of the world, leave aside India which is leading it, the entire digitization of the world has changed the way the customers are engaging. So you're now talking about creation of ecosystems. You're now talking about creation of brands which truly epitomize trust, which truly epitomize experience, which truly epitomize value. You're talking about a whole host of new measures which possibly traditional industries such as ourselves possibly didn't think about in a very formal way. We were doing it, but we possibly didn't think about quantifying it and trying to make it a way of life and make it a mission statement for ourselves. At MMTC-PAMP, we've taken a whole host of new initiatives, especially in the digital space. Delighted to share that they have really borne fruit. So while we struggled in the initial years last year during the lockdown, as did all the industries across the country, especially during the lockdowns, what we found was that this digital journey was that really dark horse which was coming out of the shadows and really running very, very fast forward and surprising us on counts that we couldn't have imagined. So without getting too much into it in terms of the nuts and bolts, I'm sure we're going to have lots of opportunities to speak and engage as smaller groups, one-on-one. I look forward to having these conversations because each of you in this room brings in a perspective and a background which is extremely valuable to us at MMTC-PAMP. I don't think without any of you, this ecosystem can ever be complete, and we truly value that, and we're truly thankful to all of you for your support because I do know I've picked up the phone and spoken to a lot of you personally during times when we were asking these questions together as a team. So thank you again, Mr. Srivastava, for pulling this together. Thank you again for having us here and wishing ourselves the very best in the years ahead. I'm sure it's going to be years which is going to surprise all of us for the better, and look forward to partnering all of you in this journey forward. Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite Mr. S Reddy, MD and CEO, MCX, to deliver his special address. So that's gonna be virtual.
Good evening, Mr. Srinivas and Mr. Prithviraj Kothari and other dignitaries on the dais, off the dais. Thank you for inviting me for India Gold Conference. And it's really scintillating, I would say, the presence of so many people, to see so many people present, and we are not being present. And I'm sure I will make it a point to be present next year. This is my promise. Having said this, I think as Mr. Vikas has said, many of us made to think that COVID has made us to think different ways of doing business. And MCX truly stood as an exchange of last resort during this period. While there is a complete lockdown in the country throughout last year and some part of this year, and MCX has helped many of the players to continue their business as usual. And no wonder almost 4.5 tons of gold was delivered during financial year 2021. And this year, so far, 5.7 metric tons of gold has been delivered. As you are aware, this is one of our flagship contracts since inception, and we almost have delivered 26 metric tons of gold. But this is not the only thing that we are doing it. We have introduced other cash-settled products, especially in the form of Buldex, where the bullion and where the silver and gold combination index has been created, and that has been doing very well. Almost all 250 crores ADT, average daily turnover, has been clocked since inception in this contract. That's something very good development, and many of the players have benefited, given the annual volatility in gold prices in the financial year 21 as 18% and 15% a year ago. So such high volatility really helped. The exchange contracts have helped many players to secure themselves or mitigate their risk. Apart from it, as an exchange, we want to promote the Atmanirbhar Bharat concept, and we not only say that make in India, trade in India, price in India, all these have to be the part of our initiatives. Under Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have already empaneled two India Good Delivery Standard compliant producers or refiners of gold, and so far they have delivered about 466 metric tons of gold on the exchange platform. I think while the big players are LBMA approved or recognized refiners are fine, we would like to give our platform a support. Rather, our platform will continue to give support to many mid-level players who may not be willing to look at the international markets. That's the reason why we thought we should encourage our domestic refiners, and some more will come maybe by the end of this month or early next month. Some more refiners will be added to this. Having said that, yes, silver ETFs is one thing that SEBI has recently recognized, and we will continue to engage with the mutual fund industry to take exposure rather than buying the entire silver and then keep it in the vaults. I think SEBI has permitted up to 10% of the fund size to be invested in any single commodity. We have been encouraging and worked actively with IBJA as well as the mutual fund industry, again, to get this initiative, activated. Having said this, the International Bullion Exchange is something which we are eagerly looking forward to, and it is a collective effort of every player in this industry, I must say this. And the exchanges as a consortium, we have come together, exchanges and depositories, 5 of us. We have set up the International Bullion Exchange, and we will work towards the successful launch of it. And I'm sure we will make it one of the best exchanges in the world. That's what our objective is, and we are committed to make it a successful platform. SEBI or IFSCA has also been actively pursuing various initiatives to make it a successful venture. I'm sure with this, we will be able to at least create the India-centric price for gold, which we have been longing for. Having said that, we are also eagerly awaiting maybe regulations of gold spot exchange that SEBI has announced. And once those regulations are all in place, we would like to take active part in that. I was meeting one broker in the morning, and he was very, very emphatic that MCX is part of the blood of every bullion trader in the country, and there's no way that anybody can replace MCX. I'm sure we will continue to make ourselves worthy of such kind of comment and such kind of support from all the players in the bullion industry. I once again express my gratitude to all of you for being present, notwithstanding the harsh times that we are at this point in time facing. But at the same time, I also express my gratitude for supporting MCX and all its products rock solid. And again, I wish the conference a success, all the success. Thank you so much.
Now I request Ms. Ruth Crowell, CEO LBMA, to deliver her special address.
Thank you so much to the organizers for the opportunity to address you today. My only regret is that I can't be with you in Jaipur. Not only is Jaipur one of my favorite cities in India, but certainly the IGC is one of my favorite events in the gold calendar each year. I look forward to hopefully joining you in person next year. Today, I wanted to talk a bit about, from my perspective as Chief Executive for LBMA, what I see as a historic moment for India in terms of the developments over the last 3 years, and in particular the last year. But also talk about how India steps onto the world stage in a more meaningful way, and perhaps give some advice from my perspective as to how you can achieve the aims that has been spoken about already on the platform today. So first and foremost, I wanted to congratulate you on the achievements that have taken place since I last spoke at the IGC conference at the IBJA hosted summit 3 years ago. And there I was asked to speak about advice to India in terms of how to develop the market. And really I was trying to get across is make a business case that works for India and that also brings the world in. And many congratulations on the launch of the Bullion Exchange. This is truly a historic moment for the Indian market, something that would be celebrated certainly in normal times, but something that is truly phenomenal given the ongoing pandemic that we are all challenged with over the last 2 years. So many congratulations on getting that historic milestone, or passing that historic milestone. I think the question is where you go from here. And I'm delighted to hear already in terms of the remarks, talking about OECD, talking about how we bring the world in. And in particular, I hope that when we come together at the next IGC in person, I can be congratulating you on two main things. One, having a second good delivery refiner in India, and two, having bullion banks taking part in the LBMA gold price. We have 3 Chinese banks that take part directly in the LBMA gold price. It's long overdue for India to have a seat at that table. I know that there are challenges and questions and conversations that need to happen with the central bank, but let's see if we can have those conversations together, because India should be involved in that price discovery process. The other aspect is good delivery, which certainly as LBMA we are best known for in terms of our good delivery standards. These are standards originally developed for local London, largest physical financial market in the world for gold, but it's also used as a reference point and as a gold standard globally. It was a very important event when MMTC-PAMP became the first LBMA accredited good delivery refiner in India, a first for India, but certainly given the ambitions of India as a global center, having more than one would be in everyone's interest. I was delighted to host in terms of Chairperson Shri coming from IFSCA to London to talk about the achievements of the Indian market, but also to challenge the LBMA in terms of our consideration of non-technical criteria. This is something that we review on a regular basis, and we do a deep dive every 3 years. Fortunately, in 2022, we are doing a deep dive on the non-technical criteria. The main parts here are tangible net worth, minimum refined production, as well as operation history. We will launch a consultation in 2022 to get feedback from the wider industry in terms of where they believe these requirements could be. I'm often asked if there is a shortcut for any of our accreditation, and that is certainly not the case. But the point of the non-technical criteria is to ensure that we are only accrediting refiners who can operate globally and who have staying power. We're not looking to accredit refiners who are in business for 12 months or the gold price is high, therefore it makes sense for a short period. We're looking for long-term global partners. We are conscious in terms of tangible net worth in particular is quite a blunt instrument. So we will be reviewing if there are other criteria that we could take into consideration. The other aspect on refined tonnage is consideration for a refiner who perhaps is already accredited for silver and meets the tonnage there. Could there be flexibility in terms of the 10 tons required for gold? These are the thoughts we are having at the moment, and we would look forward to engaging with you and hearing the feedback from certainly the Indian market as well as the global market as a whole. Another key factor of good delivery is, as you know, the responsible sourcing standard. If you're not aware, we have had a substantial changes to this program and have consulted heavily this year. So I would say for any prospective applicants, please get involved in the consultation as we're finalizing the guidance this year, and be sure that you're ready for those requirements coming into place in the beginning of January in 2022. You've got the main changes summarized here, but really our focus has been additional transparency on the origin of material, as well as risk mitigation, how refiners are dealing with challenging situations when they're sourcing gold. The other major point is the environment, having real requirements here. Now, this is part of the conversation which we are having with refiners, and then we need to have that conversation with the miners as well. And I'm delighted to say that is starting to take place, certainly led by the World Gold Council. Speaking of the World Gold Council, I am delighted to tell you that our gold bar integrity work, we have joined hands with them to see if we can bring a digital chain of integrity through technology to the world stage. Our focus is on all feedstock and all LBMA good delivery refiner production, and really assuring anyone who's purchasing this that it's really gold, that it hasn't financed threat, and it's really from an LBMA refiner. How we get that done on the technology, we've had lots of fantastic proposals, but we will be consulting with the wider industry on how we achieve this as a global industry and make good on the promise of really improving the integrity of gold. As we know, gold can't tarnish, but certainly our reputations can. And it's important that we work together on a global stage to address these challenges. This brings me on into the International Bullion Center work. India is a major center for gold. I don't need to tell you that, but it's a key market. And it's important with the development and the internationalization of India that you are seen as the leader that you are on this stage when it comes to elimination of gold laundering. We as industry need to be consistent as to how we put controls in these major centers, and the controls, I mean the OECD requirements. Having this consistency at industry then is hugely supported when it comes to national authorities. Customs having a informed response about how they control flows coming into the country. That's not to say that India doesn't have those controls. I actually know that there's significant controls in place. It's more about getting governments around the world who are perhaps not as familiar to understand what's considered best practice, where are there lessons learned that can be copied into other centers. Since we launched our requirements about a year ago, I'm happy to say we've had good engagement from all 12 centers, and including India. We've also seen the governments come together to create their own forum to discuss these issues on a governmental level, and I'm delighted India has been a key part of that process. This is hosted by the OECD, and it's also joined by the Financial Action Task Force, because certainly these issues of threat finance go wider than gold. They're wider than precious metals, precious stones, as well as money laundering. And it's certainly important for the gold industry to be taking these issues seriously and having a joint approach of trying to eliminate gold laundering altogether. So in conclusion, I do hope that we sit together at the IGC in person. I really hope that we are discussing the new accreditation of an additional Indian goods delivery refiner. And we're seeing bullion banks taking those rightful seats on the price auction. But until then, I wish you a very successful conference and look forward to engaging with you on all of these work streams for the global industry throughout the next 12 months. Thank you.
Now we will play the recorded speech of Mr. David Tait, CEO WGC.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I entered the gold industry and began my tenure as CEO of the World Gold Council in early 2019. I came from an investment banking and hedge fund career largely focused on interest rates and foreign exchange. During the first few months of my tenure, I could not help but compare the global gold market to the markets in which I had spent a long 35 years, and I noticed 5 things. Firstly, the interest rates and FX markets I left had, in their prior decade, introduced fundamental changes which, amongst other improvements, both increased transparency and decreased the credit risks participants faced. This made it easier for buyers and sellers to find the best market price and encourage wider and more active participation. These markets have never looked back. These positive changes had been made because the interest rates and FX markets had found themselves in the crosshairs of financial regulators post the 2008 crisis and had taken the very wise decision to self-reform and not have draconian measures imposed upon them by a frustrated regulator. These changes have been largely driven by the Fixed Income, Currency and Commodity Markets Standards Board, quite a mouthful, or easier, FMSB, a body established under the auspice of the Bank of England, charged with the reform of the function, practices and standards of all fixed income, currency and commodity markets. Over the last 2 years, the gold trading markets have undergone a similar process of self-examination and introspection, and set in train an inclusive reform process that will implement similar improvements. In this context, I have chaired the FMSB's Precious Metals Working Group, a body composed of a very broad set of OTC gold market stakeholders, including all the major bullion banks and the LBMA, charged with improving the gold trading markets. We have made great strides, most recently making the important decision to draft a spotlight review to be published by the FMSB, recommending moving the market from an opaque bilateral system to a more transparent, semi-cleared model. It is hoped that these reforms lead to greater transparency, trust, and of course participation going forward, lowering the barriers to institutional investment from which all participants in the gold market will quite obviously benefit. Secondly, I noticed that despite 35 years in rates, currencies, and commodity markets, I still knew very little about gold. I concluded my ignorance was not unique. And so, as a consequence, we have been making the case for gold and why it should form part of every balanced portfolio to institutional investors worldwide. The WGC now has teams in New York, London, Singapore, Mumbai, Shanghai, and Beijing, advising institutional investors and asset allocators, working to make sure that the role of gold in an investment portfolio is fully understood. In this context, we have invested heavily in both digital and TV advertising to not only make the case for gold in portfolios, but also lay out the overwhelmingly positive and differentiated case for gold to counter the somewhat anti-gold advertising emanating from the cryptocurrency industry. These sales, education, and advertising programs, in conjunction with our previously mentioned work to lower barriers to entry, will no doubt help drive new demand for gold. Thirdly, I became aware of the lack of trust and understanding of gold at a retail level. 48% of retail participants actively considering making a gold investment cited trust barriers in both the gold products on offer to them and the providers they would buy from. Furthermore, 60% of those polled simply didn't understand the actual product on offer. Incidentally, the principal UK market regulator, the FCA, carries a statement on its own website warning the public that most gold sold online is, to quote their own phrase, a scam. And so, in response, after extensive industry consultation, the WGC launched the Retail Gold Investment Principles, or RGIPs. These new principles have been developed to enhance best practice in the retail sector and to increase trust in gold as an asset class. We introduced the RGIPs to India, where industry stakeholders came together to form a steering committee focused on drafting a market-wide code of conduct, and also to Germany, where the principles and supporting guidance for investors have already been distributed to many thousands of investors and dealers by the largest Landesbank. We're on the cusp of extending this rollout globally, with industry engagement underway in the US, Canada, Singapore, UK, and China. Coincident to this, we introduced a comprehensive guide to retail investment, the Retail Gold Investment Guidance, or RGIGs, that ensures novice investors are made fully aware of the wholesalers and retailers who have chosen to adopt and live the high standards of the RGIPs. In India, our second largest gold consuming market, we have also launched an emotionally evocative multimedia campaign, You Are Gold, to make gold jewelry relevant and attractive to millennials and Gen Z. You have seen our ads running on national TV channels, and we are very, very proud of them. Fourth, I noticed how vulnerable the gold mining industry was to the investor and consumer perceptions of responsibly sourced gold. I joined the WGC just as the Responsible Gold Mining Principles, or RGMPs, were launched, the first ever framework that articulates what constitutes responsible gold mining. It is vital for the industry to not only demonstrate how it is operating responsibly, but also the important role that responsible gold mining plays in contributing to social and economic development for communities and countries all over the world. Conformance with the RGMPs is now mandatory for WGC members, but it is an open standard that is suitable for all gold producers. I'm proud that a number of non-members have already committed to the RGMPs, and I hope to see further adoption. Further to this industry has such an important role to play in supporting responsible development. The UN Sustainable Development Goals are an important framework to understand where progress is required. Climate change is, of course, a very global challenge, but I'm delighted that the members of the World Gold Council have committed to report their positions and progress on climate-related risks in line with the recommendations of the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, or TCFD. This is an internationally recognized standard that helps investors and other stakeholders understand both the steps that companies are taking to reduce emissions, but also the potential impact of climate change on these businesses. This commitment has been unanimously supported across our membership and demonstrates the engagement and commitment to combating climate change. This is, of course, much work ahead of us, but I am encouraged by the opportunities to decarbonize the gold mining sector, as well as the important role that I believe gold will play in helping investors optimize their portfolios to be aligned with net zero. The gold mining's ESG commitment is crucial to enhancing trust, participation, and demand. And finally, the fifth. I noticed that the global industry appeared to have developed somewhat organically, with the resulting fragmentation frustrating many opportunities to work together and invest in the technologies crucial to enhancing transparency, trust, and understanding, all critically important to winning over the global retail and investment communities. And so, in response, the WGC, working closely with the LBMA, has developed a vision for the global gold market, the Gold 247 plan, that is underpinned by the necessary technology investments. The key aspects of this vision are, firstly, gold supply integrity. Gold needs to have unimpeachable credentials. This is essential if we are to maintain the trust and confidence of consumers, investors, and regulators. Accessibility. Physical gold needs to be fully accessible 24/7, traded 24/7, and fully accessible through contemporary channels such as digital investment accounts and even simply one's iPhone. And lastly, fungible global markets. Local and regional gold markets need to be fully interoperable, raising the possibility of gold being used for a plethora of alternative uses, from collateralization to new sources of funding. And these are not simply aspirations. The World Gold Council, partnering closely with the LBMA, aims to direct significant capital to these three most important areas, investing in the entire gold market for the good and future of the entire gold market. Of course, the WGC and LBMA will only help drive execution on these critical technical goals with the broad backing of the industry. All stakeholders, all stakeholder groups have an opinion that must be heard. And so, in conclusion, I am proposing that the industry unifies, for the first time perhaps, and works towards a sustainable future by enhancing transparency, trust, accessibility, provenance, and uniform standards. All improvements that will give confidence to both the world's investors and regulators alike. All acts guaranteed to improve participation. If we unify, the future will be very bright for our industry. Thank you to the India Gold Conference organizers for the very kind invitation to speak today, and I very much look forward to an all in-person event in 2022. Thank you so much.
Now, it's my duty to invite our chief guest of the day, Shri Injeti Srinivas, Chairperson IFSCA, to deliver his keynote address. Shri Injeti Srinivas belongs to 1983 batch of the Indian Administrative Service, Odisha Cadre. Sir graduated in Economics Honours from the Sri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi, and did his Masters in Business Administration from Strathclyde Graduate Business School, University of Strathclyde, the UK. Earlier in his career as Director Foreign Investment Promotion Board, Mr. Injeti Srinivas was credited for the inclusion of Brownfield Foreign Direct Investment FDI as part of the FDI inflows reporting system. He chaired several committees constituted by the Union Government of India, the prominent ones including the Insolvency Law Committee, Competition Law Review Committee, Committee on Decriminalization of Companies Act, and High Level Committee on Corporate Social Responsibility. He is currently a member of the Financial Stability and Development Council, FSDC, and the subcommittee formed under it. His domain specialization areas include, among others, corporate law, industrial policy, foreign direct investment, development financing, and MSME development. He assumed the responsibility of chairperson of IFSCA on the 9th of July 2020. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon to all of you. Shri Prithviraj Kothari, President of IBJA, Mr. David Tait, CEO of World Gold Council, Ms. Ruth Crowell, CEO of LBMA, my colleague, Mr. Manoj Kumar, Mr. Reddy, CEO of MCX, Mr. Vikas Singh, MD and CEO of MMTC-PAMP, Mr. Srivatsava Ganapati, CEO of Untitled Global, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to participate in the India Gold Conference organized by IBJA and Untitled Global. It's heartening to note that 400 delegates are participating in this event today, and 2/3 of them are participating in person, and over 100 virtually, including myself. It's also very heartening to note that you have organized more than 40 technical sessions, and you have 40 experts speaking on different issues. This forum has all the prominent stakeholders. I understand that the major bullion banks, the nominated Indian banks, refineries, bullion dealers, jewelers, other non-banking overseas entities, and exchanges are all present. It provides us with an ideal platform to discuss various issues concerning the gold industry in India, including the wider ecosystem issues, such as what should be the policy towards gold, what are the regulatory architectural requirements. So I really look forward to this one-day deliberations and the recommendations which flow out of these deliberations, which could surely provide us with very useful inputs as we move forward. Since we have audience, apart from audience from India, we have international audience also, I understand. I would like to emphasize that when we speak about gold in India, we are not referring to a commodity, not even to a precious metal. gold in India means much more than all this. It is part of our customs, part of our rituals, beliefs, culture, tradition, and also a source of financial security. I may not be wrong to say that, in a way, it's part of the way of life of every Indian. So gold is a very, very, very important subject matter. Even when we look at gold from the policy perspective, we'll have to understand that there's a huge degree of public sensitivity also when it comes to gold. At the economic level, it's very important. The size of the gold industry is close to $90 billion US. It provides employment to more than 6 million people. Though its contribution to the exports is not commensurate with its potential, even then, it contributes to about 15% of the merchandise exports from India. And if you look at the growth of this industry, non-stop for the last 5 decades, it's been growing at 15% CAGR. Today, the contribution of this industry to the gross domestic product is estimated to be around 1.5%. And the expectation is that in a few years to come, we should be able to double this contribution. When we talk about India and when we talk about gold, we must remember that we account for 25% of the global consumption. One country accounting for 25% of the global consumption. When you look at the above ground stock of gold held by the households and the institutions, it is estimated to be around 25,000 tons, which is more than what the central banks of the US, the European Central Bank, China, and Japan together, what they hold. Our gold stock is more than that. So there is a huge potential in this stock which is being held today, and most of it is not productive. So when we look at a country like India, sometimes one is bewildered that when you have such a large stock of gold, why do you still need to import so much of gold? That's because it's a gold-centric society. There's a huge attachment to gold. Today, when we look at the source of gold in India, hardly 1% of the gold is produced in India. Just about 10% of the gold is recycled gold. Though you have 25,000 tons of gold in India, just about 10% of this gold annual requirement is recycled gold. About 90% of the gold is imported. And when you look at the demand side, what's happening to this gold which is coming, you will see that almost 75% of this gold is going to jewelry. Less than 2-3% is going to financial products linked with gold, like say ETF or something. About 7% is going to gold coins. So here again, when we look at gold, the answer is clear. Though you're sitting on one of the largest stocks of gold, you have such a large consumption of gold, you're still very passive in the international bullion market. We are still price takers. We are not influencing the price of gold. That's because you're still in the sidelines. I can say with some element of confidence that very soon this sort of sidelined role which India is playing in the international bullion market may become a matter of past. And we are poised to move towards the center stage in a very constructive manner. It is to be noted that the gold policy in this country over the last 6 to 7 decades has gone through very rough times. It's a very complex matter. As I told you, at a macroeconomic level, there are many challenges because we are a consuming country, net consuming country. And unlike, let me tell you, I read somewhere that in the 18th century, when there was a financial crisis in the US, they had passed a Gold Control Act. And all the gold which was held came back, to the state. And they could resolve the problem. But in India, we have had 2 Gold Control Acts. We have had so many measures of, import restrictions, hiking in the tariff, from 0% to 12.5%, the customs duty. But despite all these measures, our gold consumption goes on unabated. So, because of the increased gold consumption, which today, in the early 90s, it was something around 100 tons. Today, it's around 800 tons. Tomorrow, it may be 1,000 tons. So it is the second largest imported item. The annual value of the gold imports into India is estimated anything around 50 to 60 billion USD. And it's contributing to the current account deficit in a big way. And as you understand, gold is like a currency. And when you have a very high current account deficit, there are issues. There are threats to the exchange rate. There are threats of inflation. So there are very macroeconomic problems are there. But yet, the consumption doesn't stop. So even if you take these measures, maybe it's difficult to stop the consumption. So how do you deal with this? So I think now the government has taken a very comprehensive view of gold. That we need to leverage our position. In 2015, the government came out with a gold monetization scheme, which had a deposit scheme and a gold metal loan scheme. The deposit scheme basically meant that, gold is sitting idle at your home, so why don't you deposit that gold? You will not only earn some interest, but also you will get back the gold, after that duration, whatever, short term or medium term or long term. But that did not result in much response because what really happened is that if you deposit your jewelry, that jewelry had to be melted and converted to bars. So you won't get back your jewelry after that. So the basic issue was a lot of sentimental attachment to the jewelry because it's passed on traditionally from generation to generation. You don't want to part with it. But then things are changing now. You have, the younger generations, their, behavior is different. And I think things are changing. The appetite for, investment sort of perspective to gold is also growing. So it's time for financialization of gold. We took a major step here by actually notifying gold under the IFSCA Act, the act under which the IFSCA, we have been established. Notifying gold, that means the bullion spot contract and bullion depository receipt with underlying bullion as a financial product. So now what we are really looking at is gold as a financial product, and all that, gold which is sitting in an unproductive way, can it be channelized And can it sort of, lead to this multiplier effect as a country which is, fifth or sixth largest economy in the world and amongst the fastest growing economies in the world? Our requirement of capital is insatiable. So when I talk about gold, it's not gold. It's a much larger context. But at the same time, what I want to say, which is peculiar to us, the gold is a very sensitive subject. You have to deal with it very carefully. And whatever you do, you'll have to have a very calibrated approach. And you'll have to see that all that is sustainable. Forget not that it's also something which has helped us in crisis. India has had an impeccable track record of never defaulting an external debt. You know, way back in the late 80s, our foreign exchange reserves were depleting very badly. And in 1990, we were on the verge of defaulting external debt. That's when the government pledged 40 tons of gold with the Bank of England to raise foreign capital to repay external debt. I still remember at that time, people said, "Are hamara sona girvi rakh diya. You have kept our gold. You have pledged our gold." So I'm just trying to explain to you that gold is something which is critical from the macro level. It is critical from the micro level. We have a market with insatiable demand. There are the ideal conditions for us to use this, leverage this, and become a very active player in gold. Not only be an importer, but be a huge exporter of value-added gold. You know, whether it's machine-made, whether it's handmade, and be a very, very significant player in the bullion market. In fact, there is a clear trend I see. Some of you may have seen the Ratan Vattal report in 2018. The Ratan Vattal report was tasked, with the responsibility of studying this entire sector, supply side and demand side, and making recommendations to transform the gold, sector in this country. Transformatory sort of, measures. What could be the transformatory measures? And that committee basically emphasized on, whatever I was mentioning to you, in the sense that it's an employment generator. You see, let me tell you, especially those who are an international audience, just like every village, had a potter, had a ironsmith, had a cobbler, they had a goldsmith. In fact, in my own childhood, I remember that you never bought gold from a retail shop. There was like you have your family doctor, you had a family goldsmith who really came to you, showed you designs, took your designs and made the gold ornaments. So that's the history, that's the tradition, that's how it's been going on. So it's complex because it's largely an unorganized market. The Tanishqs and the PPP jewelers, they don't, in terms of percentage, they don't add up to too much. But now things are rapidly changing. We have been one of the most successful countries in terms of digitalization. We are leading the world in a way in digitalization because of the India stack. You have this universal, payment interface and so much of inclusiveness that you have, more than 400 or 500 million people now into the banking system. They have bank accounts and other things. Now, these mean a lot because, as I mentioned to you, apart from all that customs and rituals and beliefs, it's also a source of financial security. Whenever you're in crisis, the gold was sold. and that's gold. So there's no worry. I mean, it will always have its value. So now that people have got into the financial system, they understand this financial system, you can expect them to change their behavior and see, okay, there could be few things which are very valuable, sentimental, etc., which you really you can't spare, but gold can be kept as an investment without having to make a jewelry out of it. Because when you make jewelry, there's a lot of loss, a lot of making charges, and a lot of loss when you convert jewelry into bars. Gradually, these changes are taking place, and I'm sure when you have the exchanges and other things coming, you'll have more and more of ETFs, you'll have gold saving accounts, accumulated accounts. You'll have very efficient ways of, gold metal loans, leasing. This will sort of give a lot of impetus to the industry, even the exports. For example, if you can bring out a lot of gold which is lying unproductive, you can have a lot of bars coming out of here and then that getting exported, imported. Net, I believe that in due course, net we may be an exporter of gold. There's no issue. Net we may be an exporter of gold. You see, gold today, the stock of gold we hold is more than 1.5 trillion USD. So 1.5 trillion USD is a lot of money. And gold is money. I mean, all this while, for a long time, gold was a currency, a unit of account, medium of exchange. So there's no problem. So I think now we are looking at both supply side, demand side, and also building up the ecosystem. I had the privilege of meeting Ruth and her team recently when I was in London, and I thank her for the courtesies extended to us, and we had very fruitful discussions, and I completely share her priorities. It's not unknown that gold can be abused. I mean, there could be many illicit sort of activities funded by gold. And therefore, you'll have to have a foolproof system, especially when we are trying to. One of my friends, he said that I like that, some 1x, 10x, I mean, or next 5 years, 10x. So, I mean, that's the sort of exponential growth you're looking at. So when you're having that exponential growth, you'll have to have a foolproof system. There has to be responsible sourcing of gold. You have to respect human rights. You have to respect, your climate change commitments. All this is important. And let me remind you all that in 2019, Prime Minister Modi released the national guidelines on responsible business conduct. And one of the principles, 9 principles were articulated in that document, which actually encapsulates all the commitments under the UN principles, of business and human rights, your Paris Agreement commitments, your Sustainable Development Goals, conventions against child labor. All these things were put together and you came out with that document. One of the principles is business with integrity and conducted in a manner that is transparent, that is ethical, and that is accountable. Now, this is the responsibility of everyone in the supply chain. And you will have to have systems to verify, systems to enforce. That's very important. And as a full member of FATF, we are fully committed. In fact, I think a year back, the Bureau of Industrial Standards came up with, the India Good Delivery Standards, the technical part of it. So they have come out with that. I'm very confident that in very short period, we'll be able to come up with a comprehensive responsible sourcing accreditation program, which will be fully aligned with OECD principles and FATF, guidance. And India, in fact, in 2010, when it was last reviewed, it had a very satisfactory assessment. And therefore, it was, not in the follow-up review process. And now, after 10 years, actually, we are awaiting another assessment. And maybe next year, or maybe because of the COVID, I think some delays may have taken place. So we are absolutely committed to that, and I think we'll be happy to also, take some technical inputs and advice from my friend Ruth and her team, and work on this. She has promised me that they'll be more than happy to do that. I heard Ruth saying that, India, it's high time you share the table. I think so. That's very important. And I think this international bullion exchange, I think it can trigger a lot of reforms. I look at it not merely as an exchange. I think it can trigger a lot of reforms, and it can help in that price discovery. It can help in the supply chain integrity enforcement, because it's a regulator, a statutory body, and it can also help in promoting financialization of gold in a big way. I am very confident that in the near future, there'll be a lot of liberalization on our foreign trade policy with respect to gold. That's my expectation, because it's all going in that direction. After the Vattal report, we are seeing that the international exchange was announced. In the next budget, you had, in fact, in 2018 budget, the finance minister had talked about all this deposit scheme, etc., monetization. Then you had an announcement for the international exchange. Now you've had the announcement for the domestic bullion exchange. Customs duty was reduced from 10% to 7.5%. So you are moving in that direction. And I have absolutely no doubt that this will happen. Apart from the exchange, as the International Financial Authority, the only separate financial jurisdiction within the territory of India, that means you have the domestic area, and this is the international financial jurisdiction within India. We would like to promote this for being a hub, even for refineries. So we expect a lot of refineries will come up here, and a lot of vaulting also will take place here. So it will be, in our vision is that it will be one of the very important hubs, and I think it's a fairly reasonable expectation, being one of the largest consumers of gold and also having one of the largest above ground stock of gold in the world. And all this is possible, and I'm sure we'll all rise up to this occasion. And a lot of valuable partners are here. I expect that we can all work together. Today we know that if we need a prosperous world, all have to progress. Whether it is the climate change, whether it is anything, now it's all clear that everybody has to progress for the world to progress and for progress to be sustainable. So the same applies to, even this sector. All, important IBCs, all bullion centers, they need to progress. We all have to be on the same page. And I'm sure this conference will go on very well. I'm thankful to Kothari for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. I hope all the stakeholders will take notice of this initiatives being taken, whether it is the bullion banks, whether it's other suppliers, whether refineries, and our own trading and clearing members who will join this exchange shortly. The Indian nominated banks, I really expect that they go to the next stage now. Consignment agent type of job is okay, but now you have bigger opportunities. You can play a bigger role. Some of you can even think of having a bullion bank and then, play a more important role. Thank you very much. All the best.